For our model today, we're going to give him a classic side part haircut. As you can see, he has a ton of hair, very wavy hair, very thick, and you know, it probably looks like there's no way it's going to part and lay flat. But you'll notice a lot of people that have very thick, wavy, curly hair, there's a certain level that if you take it short enough and thin it out and texturize it enough and get it below that level, it'll lay down just nice and it'll last for about 2 or 3 weeks. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a scissor over comb technique on top to cut it, because if you see when I pick it up with my fingers, because it's so wavy, the hair is laying right on my fingers, so it's really hard to get in there with the point of the scissor and cut all that hair. It's going to be much easier to pick it up with a comb and cut it. We are going to dampen it down first, and then we're going to do some scissor over comb through the round of the head area here. We're going to start on the top and work our way down so we can blend it in easier. One of the things that I like to do when I do a haircut is I never like to leave a heavy weight line around the edge. So I don't want to take a ½ inch or 5/8 of an inch and just run it up the side and leave this big bowl cut or mushroom cut to blend out. I want to start from the top and work my way down so we actually never see that. So as we start to spin them around, the one thing that I do notice as I'm combing through it, I don't want to go too short on the sides, because you can see here, he's got a little bit of a thin hairline, as thick as his hair is, around his ear. So we can't have all this thick head of hair and have a real high arcing white wall around the ear. So we have to be careful there. So that tells me I can't taper it too close there. So as I spin him around, I don't see any problems with any really bad crown or calyx or swirls back here, so we're going to be okay there. He has a nice thick hairline, which is going to taper out relatively easy. So the majority of the work is going to be done on the top by bringing the length down to that right length to take out the wave, but leaving it long enough so we can go through. We're going to have to use 2 different types of thinning shears. We're going to use a 23-tooth thinning shear, which is going to take a little bit of weight out, and we're also going to use a 44-tooth thinning shear, which is going to take more. So the combination of the two is going to take the wave and the curl out and straighten his hair out. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to dampen his hair down. Now his hair is freshly shampooed. It's just kind of dried out. So what I want to do is I want to have his hair damp but not dripping wet. And usually with thick hair like this, you want to wet it down kind of slowly, because the water, a lot of times it just rolls off. It doesn't penetrate all the way through. So in some cases, you may need to put a leave-in conditioner or some type of cutting lotion on. In this case, we don't. So to find the part, what I do is I comb the hair straight back. Okay, and then the part is right in here. Okay, so there's the part, and what I want to do is cut against the grain. So as the hair combs back, obviously it grows straight back. I want to start from the back and cut it forward. But what I want to keep in mind is when you look at the angle of my comb, you can see the head is round. So with this angle of the comb, the hair is going to be shortest in the center, it's going to be longest in the front, and it's going to be longest in the back. That way we're going to have enough hair in the front for the hair to comb to the side, and we're going to have enough hair in the back so it doesn't stick up. So I'm just going to start in the center and get my center guide and take one section at a time. Now if you notice, one section or one panel, I'm not cutting across the comb into my fingers, I'm just cutting one section. And that's going to serve as my guide for each side. So once I cut the center section, I want to comb it, see what the hair is doing. Already you can start to see it laying down. So now I can see my center guide in my comb, and I have a traveling guide underneath behind what I'm cutting. So now I'm working with 2 guides. And in the front, what I want to do is I don't want to round the comb down. I want to take an imaginary line straight out. That way it leaves the front just a little bit longer so we have the hair to comb to the side. And now in the part area, we have to be really careful. I want to make sure we elevate that comb and see how this hair is falling out. If I round the comb, we lose the corner and the hair is going to stick out. It's not going to comb back the way we want it to. So the comb, when you're cutting the top with this square shaped haircut like a classic side part, we want to make sure the comb is parallel to the floor. Okay, now we'll comb that straight back. Should be easier to find the part. And then all this hair here on the side, we'll get that on the side when we cut the round of the head section. So now we did a center section, and then we did 2 sections to each side. Now we have to do the 2 sections on the opposite side. So the back, I'm just pulling up at 90 degrees, and that's where I'm starting to cut. I can see my center guide right there. Comb is parallel to the floor. I'm taking about 1.5 inches off, again, because I said I want to leave myself enough hair so I can go in with the 2 types of thinning shears to really take out that bulk, take out that thickness. Okay, comb is parallel to the floor. We're taking an imaginary line straight out so we leave the front longer. And one thing I never want to do working with the front is I never want to comb the front straight down and cut straight across. We want the front the longest part so we have room for it to go, so it's long enough to go to the side or go back. If I need to take a length off the front, what I'm going to do is I'm going to angle the comb this way and come across, and that's going to take some of the length off. And especially he has a very thick, low front hairline there. So if I comb it down and cut it straight across, he's going to have a lot of short pieces right there, and it won't stay to the side. So now I need to take my last section here. Okay, and now that we've finished that, we're going to repeat that, all those steps with our 23 tooth blending shear or thinning shear. And what this is going to do is this is not going to take as much hair out. So we're going to go deeper down on the shaft of the hair with this one, and then we're going to go higher up on the shaft of the hair with the 44 tooth, which is going to take more hair. So the slower you move the comb, the more hair you're going to take. The faster you move the comb, the less hair you're going to take. The one thing you have to be aware of is that if you move the comb too slow, the scissor stays in the same spot and you wind up cutting length. So I don't want to cut length, I just want to take a lot of this thickness out. But since he has so much hair, we're going to move the comb slow. And now you can see the hair as I'm combing it, you can see the hair straightening out. So I'm taking the same sections as I took before with the straight scissor. And now we're going to come across the front. Okay, and now we're going to do the other side. Now the part sides are tricky, so I'm just going to take one section on this side instead of 2. I don't want to take a chance in thinning out the part side because the hair doesn't have as far to travel either way, whereas on the side opposite the part there's a lot more hair here. So we have to be very careful, otherwise all the hair on the part's going to be sticking up, it won't lay down. Okay, so now we're going to comb all that through, and then I'm going to grab my next thinning scissor. So now I'm going to use the 44 tooth thinning shear, and we're going to do the same thing, but except we're not going to go down as far on the hair. And each time you can feel that comb going through easier. Okay, and then we're going to come back across the front. And then we're going to take that last section on the opposite side. And bring that straight forward. Okay, and then what I want to do is I want to take my vent brush. And now we're going to brush it straight back and to the side. And now you can see that hair is straightened out nicely on the top. And we can easily find the part. And at the end, we're going to probably style them with either some gel or some grooming cream. So now we're ready to move on to the round of the head section. And we want to make sure we keep that square cut. So I'm going to stick with my scissor over comb technique. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up this area here and prepare it for my clipper work. So I don't lose sight of my clipper blade and my clipper doesn't get caught in all this hair. So I can see my guide from the top. If you look really closely, it's right here, all the way around. So I want to blend to that guide, but I don't want to cut the guide. And the other thing I want to make sure I do is I keep my comb flat across here when I'm cutting. I don't round in too much because I don't want to cut a hole in the front here. So now I'm just going to use my scissor over comb technique and clean this up. And then after we finish this all the way around, then we'll go in with our largest clipper blade and clean up around the edges. So by doing it this way, we're not going to leave ourselves a heavy weight line that's going to be needed to be blended out. So when you're dealing with very thick hair, you want to use and you're using a scissor over comb technique. It helps when you're using a longer shear. I'm using a 7.5 inch shear right now. It gives you more power to get through the hair, and you don't have to cover as much. You don't have to cover as much ground as if you were using a 5 inch or 5.5 inch scissor. Okay, so now you can kind of see in here we're creating another guide, and that's when we come in with our clipper work. We're going to fade it right out. We're going to fade right into that, and we're not going to leave ourselves a heavy weight line that needs to be blended out. So I'm just following the contour of the head, and I'm blending into my top guide. And once we finish with this, I'm going to come back in the same area, probably not as low, but right up and through here with the thinning shears again, and do the same thing that I did on the top. So now I have my 23 tooth thinning shear, and I'm following that same the same area that I did with my straight scissor. Straight up in the air. I don't want to round the corner because I don't want to lose that corner. We want to make sure we thin that out good. So we're going to do it with this scissor first, and then we're going to do it with the 44 tooth. You can see now how that's combing back nicely, not as bushy. I'm cutting on a diagonal in the back. As you can see, his hair is growing towards me, so I'm going against the grain. Now on this side, I want to be careful, just like I said before on the part side, because the hair doesn't have as much to weigh it down like it does on the other side. We just have this little bit because it's a short distance from the part. So I'm not going to go in as far. Okay, and now I'm going to come back with the finer tooth thinning shear, the 40-40 tooth thinning shear. We're going to do the same thing and work our way back around again. Okay, and now I'm turning him towards me and I'm coming against the grain. Now, what all these extra steps are doing is it's going to add a little bit of longevity to the haircut, and the haircut is going to look much better as it grows in. Because people with thick hair, I mean, you can just keep cutting it shorter and shorter, but it's not going to accomplish this. All it's going to do is it's going to be too short, and it's going to stick up, and it's going to be just as thick. Okay, so now what we're going to do as we finish that is we're going to use our powerful rotary motor clipper. So it's a rotary motor clipper. It's cordless. We're going to use metal blades to go through the hair easier. I'm using my 1/2-inch blade. It's a 3 3/4 blade, and these are universal on metal blades across all brands. I'm using a white comb for the contrast, just like I used a gray comb on top when you're dealing with dark hair. So I can see my guide right there. I want to start to fade out about 1.5 inches below that. And I want to go very slow so I don't create a heavy weight line so we don't have a lot of blending to do. And we're going to work our way all the way around the head form. So as you can see, by leaving this low taper here and cleaning up all this area here in the round of the head section first, that clipper is going through there nice and easy, and we're blending as we're cutting. So we're leaving ourselves very little blending work. We're not making a heavy line of demarcation to blend out. So this is probably one of the most common haircuts in men's hair cutting or barbering. We call it the 1/2-inch taper. It's just your classic side part haircut. But even though it's common, every one of them is different because everybody has different types of hair. Everybody's got a different hairline. But hopefully you can see the advantages of starting on the top and working your way down. So we're not creating a heavy line of demarcation that needs to be blended out. We're basically all blended. So the slower you move with the clipper, the more efficient, and the more efficient you're going to be. You're going to have a better haircut. You're going to be done faster, and you're actually working slower. So with metal blades, make sure you hold that ear down You don't want to hit the back of the ear with a metal blade. There's no give to it like a plastic attachment. You'll most likely nip or cut the ear if you hit it with the cutting blades on the back of the ear. So I always protect the ear with my finger and rest the heel of the blade on my finger. Now I want a smooth motion, straight up in the air, away from the head, just like I did with the comb when I was doing my scissor over comb work. Okay, and now that we've finished that, we're going to move on to our semi-finish, which is the 2-finger width around the outline of the haircut, and then we're going to outline them with the trimmers. Now I have my number 2 blade on here, so I skipped a blade, and I'm tilting the blade up a little bit just to make it a little bit longer, and I'm working on the semi-finish area. So I want to create a 45-degree bevel or taper around the outline of the haircut. But I don't want to cut up into the previous length. I like the length that we have. So I'm just, once the teeth hit the outline of the haircut, I'm using a scooping motion to scoop the hair out, just to leave a nice light taper on it. The same thing in the back. So we're using a short scooping motion. We don't want to use an elongated scooping motion because then we'll get too deep of a taper. So with a more classic side part haircut like this, what we want is to have a low, natural faded hairline. I don't want to bring it up off the natural hairline. And I always have the ear protected with my finger. And you see as we pull that ear down, that hair pops out. And then we're going to run it over the sideburn. And at a 45-degree angle through the temple area. And now we're going to take the 2 blade off and put the 1.5 blade on, which is the next length down. And we're going to do the same thing, but not quite as high. And the other advantage with the metal blades is with the 1.5 blade, I can do a little bit of clipper over comb if I have to. It's just a little heavy right there. We can barely see it, but so this is all the blending that we need to do versus creating that huge weight line and spending 10 or 15 minutes blending that out. We completely took that step out of our haircut, which is the hardest step for most people. So the way I look at it is as if, you know, we're cutting out the most difficult part of the haircut. Now here what I'm doing is I'm using a point cutting technique with the clipper to soften the outline up. And right here where it's a little heavy, instead of going this way and bringing it too short, too far up, we're just taking a little bit of the thickness out. It's almost like using a thinning shear. And that just softens that up for you there. And now we're going to do the same thing here on the outline of the haircut. And this is going to get it ready for the adjustable clipper. So he's got a great hairline. So this should look really good when we're done with it. Very thick hairline, and we're going to see some nice sharp lines on the outline of his haircut. Now using that same point cutting technique in the corner there, against the grain, against the way the hair grows, because I don't want that taper to go up higher, but he's got a few heavy spots there. And he's got a few on this side too, right here. So we're just going to come in at an angle, and then right across here, just above the occipital bone. Vertically, we're going to come across. So just where we had a little heaviness there, that just blends it right out. And same thing on this side, there's not much there. Okay, so we're done with the powerful clipper. Now we're going to switch to an adjustable lever clipper. We're going to leave it in the open position. I'm going to pull that ear down, and we're just going to taper that little part out. Now I'm going to close it down all the way, pull the ear down. And as I said before, he's got a little bit of a high hairline around his ear, so we don't want to go too high. We're going to leave it at that. And then I'm not even going to cut around the ear with the trimmer. We're just going to leave it that way. We're just going to line up his sideburns, and we're going to start in the back and outline here. So the taper is basically already there. So what we're going to do is just in the open position, we're going to scoop it out just a little bit before we even get to the hairline. So when the tip of the stationary blade gets to the hairline, that's when you start scooping it out so we don't go into the hairline. Then we're going to close it halfway and do it again and not go as high. And now we're going to close it all the way and do it again and not go as high. Just going to open it back up a little bit. This one corner is a little heavier. There we go, that does the trick. We're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Now we're going to pull his ear down. You see all that hair in the front, and we got to get that hair using our scooping motion. Now we're going to close it halfway and do it again. Now we're going to close it all the way and do it again. And with it closed all the way, I'm just going to come around just a little bit and clean it up off the ear. So now when we come back with the trimmer on this side, we're going to have to get a little bit, it's a little thicker on this side in front of the ear than the other side. So when we pull the ear down, just going to get that little bit there. Now when you're doing sideburns, you want to make sure the chin is parallel to the floor and your blade is parallel to the floor. That way we get nice straight sideburns. We don't get a sideburn that's angled up or down. Now on the back, I want to turn his head to the side. I want to lengthen that neck muscle so we have a nice smooth surface to make a nice clean line. So we're just touching the neck, and then we're going to shave to it. And when we're in the back, on the neck, we want to keep the blade parallel to the floor, and I want to stop well below the taper. I don't want to cut into the taper at all because then we'll have to bring it up higher, and I don't want to bring it up off the natural hairline. Okay, so we just work our way around to the opposite side, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make that line. We're not going to press. Just going to gently touch the skin with the clipper. And then we're okay over the ear. Now we're going to lift his chin up again so he's parallel to the floor. We're going to line off the sideburn. I'm going to turn around and shave up to it. Okay, and that completes our haircut, and then we're going to move on to, now we'll move on to the style. We have two choices to go with to style this classic side part haircut, which I like to call the All-American haircut. We could either go with a firm hold gel, which is going to give you a high shine and a really strong firm hold where it's going to harden up and hold all day, or we can go with a grooming cream with a medium hold, medium shine. Both products are from our Zorian of New York men's grooming line. In this case, because our model's hair is so thick and it's going to stay where you comb it anyway, even if he didn't have product in, we're going to go with a little bit lighter hold, and the grooming cream actually is probably our most popular product. So what we're going to do is we want to take a nice amount of it, about that much, and then we want to emulsify it in our hands all the way through so it almost looks clear. And then we're going to get it through the top of the hair, and then we're going to comb it, or we're going to finger it all the way through to the roots. Whenever you're using a product, you want to get not just on the top, you want to get it all the way through to right down to the roots, right down to the scalp. And the nice thing about the grooming cream, unlike the gel, is that during the day, if he wanted to recomb his hair or run his fingers through his hair, he can, because it's not going to harden up. It has enough hold to hold it in place, but it doesn't harden up. And then we're just going to take our vent brush, and we want to get that nice classic look, so we're going to give it that nice part. And while you're combing it back, I still have the product in my hand, so I'm smoothing it out with the product in my hand. So we get it right down to the part there, so it holds that part in. Because his hair does have a tendency, as you saw when we started the haircut, to want to go straight back. Okay, so now we have a nice clean parted haircut. And we'll spin them around so you can see what really makes it stand out is the outline of the haircut and the tapered neckline. So just for a quick review, we use the grooming cream from the Zorian of New York product line. And we emulsified it in our hands really good. We went over the top first, and then we got the product right down to the roots, and we used a vent brush to comb it into place.